I'm John McQuay with 8541 Tactical, and this is Mail Call Mondays, the show that answers your questions about precision rifles, optics, and equipment. Welcome to another Mail Call Mondays, and today we are going to talk about glass bedding. Why you need the glass bedding, or maybe why you don't need the glass bed. Now, it is a pretty common assumption that when you decide to go with a fiberglass stock on your rifle, or even a wood stock on your rifle, that you need to glass bed the action into the rifle. Now, what is glass bedding? Now, quite simply, what you're doing when you glass bed a rifle stock is you're taking the inlet that the stock comes with, the cutout to fit your action, and you're cutting that cutout a little bit oversized. You're cutting the inlet oversized so that there is clearance between the action and the stock. You're then going back in and you're taking a fiberglass bedding compound like Marine Tex or one of the multitude of other two-part epoxy compounds out there, and you are laying that in to that space that you created. You then put a release compound on the stock, or I'm sorry, on the action, so that it can come back out when it's done. You drop the action in there and you allow that epoxy compound, that glass bedding compound, to fill all the voids between the action and the stock. When you're done, you turn around and you pop the action back out of the stock, and you will have an exact duplicate in the stock of the bottom of that action. So any of the manufacturing variances, any of the nooks and crannies in the bottom of that action will be reproduced inside the stock. And this gives you a perfect mechanical lock between the action and between the stock. This is our McMillan A3-5 that McMillan sent out to us, and we had Southern Indiana Precision glass bed our action into this stock. And when it's done, even the little proof mark that Remington put on the bottom of the action is recreated in the glass bedding in the stock. So what that gives us is when we go and we torque the action down into this stock, it exactly mates the same way every single time. So if we use the same torque with the action dropped in here the same way every time, then it's going to be in the same place and it's going to give us repeatable results. Also, by glass bedding, we have the least amount of room for that action to move inside the stock. So we retain that torque, we retain that surface contact between the action and between the stock, and we have very little to worry about. Now, it's really not up for debate that if you want the absolute best accuracy you can get out of a fiberglass stock, you want to glass bed your action into it. That takes up any chance for error, any margin for error, and it removes the manufacturing tolerances between the action and between the stock. If the stock was cut absolutely perfect for your action, then it wouldn't be the same for the next action down the line. And obviously manufacturers have to set certain tolerances because they can't cut it absolutely perfect for every action coming off the line. Remington hand polishes the outside of their actions, so there's going to be variances between different actions. We've seen that from time to time on how they fit. We've seen it from time to time on how scope bases fit. That's why sometimes you need to glass bed scope bases on the top of your action. Now, what I really want to get into, it's not up for debate that you need to glass bed for the absolute best accuracy, for the absolute most repeatable cold bore shots, and the just best overall results. What I want to talk about is the concept that you have to glass bed a fiberglass rifle stock. Because now on our market, we've got a ton of different options for how to attach the action to your body. Now, when we look at stocks like systems that have a aluminum bedding block in them, or Accuracy International chassis system that has a internal structure, an internal backbone with an inlet cut in it, we are looking at a chunk of aluminum that has been run on a CNC machine and has a pocket cut into it that is supposed to match your action as closely as possible, taking into account the manufacturing variances in the stocks and the manufacturing variances in the actions. When we take a Remington 700 action, there can be some significant variances on the outside of that action, so those tolerances have to be taken into account. You wouldn't be very happy if you got your brand new chassis out, went to drop your action in, and it didn't fit because the inlet was too tight for the action. So there has to be some clearance between those two to be able to allow it to fit a wide variety of actions out there. And when you take into account the Remington 700 and the wide range of years that action has been manufactured over, you can get into a pretty wide tolerance there. So manufacturers do the best that they can to cut that inlet to fit the widest variety of actions. But no one bats an eye about taking a chassis system or taking an aluminum bedding block equipped stock and just dropping your action in there, going to the range and shooting it, or going to competitions and shoot it. Most of the rifles that are in chassis systems and are safe are not bedded into those chassis systems. They're just bolted right into the chassis system. In fact, my Accuracy International AE Mark II that comes from AI, set up this way, it's not bedded into its chassis. It's just simply bolted in. Now obviously the AWs and even the ATs going forward are all glued into their chassis, so that's a kind of bedding. It's just a non-removable bedding. So instead of using any kind of release agent, they just simply epoxy the action into the chassis. But that's a little bit different, a little bit out of the scope of what we're talking about here. But nobody bats an eye if you just take your action, drop it into a chassis, bolt it down, and go to the range. But if you tell somebody you're going to take a fiberglass stock and you're going to bolt your action in and go to the range, they look at you kind of funny. You'll get all kinds of comments about how you're not going to get the best accuracy out of it, all this nonsense. Well, let's stop and let's think about what the true differences are between the two. When we are talking about a stock like a McMillan fiberglass stock, the fiberglass that they use to make these stocks is very consistent, it's very durable, and it does not have a lot of dimensional change based on the weather. So temperature is not going to cause a wide flux in the dimension of the material. You're not going to have any moisture seep in here and cause any swelling like we did with old wood stocks. It's really a very almost inert material. So it's really giving your action a very, very good support. Now, when McMillan contacted us and they asked us to take a look at their new Desert Spectre color scheme, we discussed what we would like in a stock, and when we spec'd out this A3-5, besides all the external stuff, the cheek piece, the spacers, and the flush cups, and of course the rail that you see on the outside of it, what we requested was that it came with aluminum pillars built into it. This you can order the stock straight from McMillan with pillars already in it, cut with the inlet ready to go. We like to do that because when we start to compress things, I really prefer to compress aluminum than worrying about compressing fiberglass and having the chance of actually cracking it due to the way the stocks are made. I don't know if that is a really founded concern, but it's kind of a tradition to have aluminum pillars in these chassis. So we went ahead and ordered it with the aluminum pillars, but we didn't have anything extra done with the action. The action is cut the way they normally cut the pocket for 700s. The inlet is cut specifically for Remington 700, and we told them we wanted it cut with an M40 barrel contour, which gives us a very wide variety of barrel options. But when we discussed it with them, we discussed this notion that you have to glass bed a fiberglass stock and how that's kind of unfounded. So we told them we'd like to go ahead and get the stock in, and we're going to shoot it without any bedding. And that was kind of the whole idea that this was stemmed from. So we got the stock in, we dropped our Remington 700 action with a Hawk Hill barrel, and it was all barreled up by Southern Indiana Precision. And we shot it for quite a few months with just the action torqued in, and it was good to go. We saw the same kind of accuracy out of that combo bolted into this stock as we did with it bolted into the KRG X-Ray chassis and the chassis that we had that bolted in before. So we didn't see any accuracy loss going from just straight bolting it into a chassis to just bolting it into a fiberglass stock. What you have to remember is, again, we're working with pretty much the same tolerances. The tolerance that McMillan is cutting this inlet to is the same tolerance that you would have a chassis manufacturer cut their inlet to. So your action has the same amount of room, regardless of it's supported by fiberglass or supported by aluminum. Now I will say that I prefer to have an action glass bedded into a fiberglass stock because that takes up the extra room for garbage to get down in here, for water to intrude between the action and the stock. And it also just, I think what it does, what I've seen is it helps tighten up that cold bore shot, that first shot of the day. That usually tends to be a little bit more consistent with a bedded stock than it does if you don't have any bedding in it. Now, it is still well within the needs of my use when you go unbedded versus bedded. But if you know you're going to keep an action and a stock together, you might as well go ahead and bed it. But the whole purpose is you don't have to. You don't, when you purchase a fairly expensive stock like the one here, and you spec it out, you don't have to go, oh, I'm going to have to get my brand new pretty stock in and leave it in a box until I have the money to have a gunsmith bed it, until I have the time to bed it. No, you can go ahead and take it out of the box as soon as it comes in, slap it on your rifle, go to the range and shoot. And you might be surprised at the accuracy that you're getting. You might find that the accuracy that you're getting out of your system is more than enough for your intended purpose and doesn't require bedding at all. So that is mainly what I wanted to talk about here. The fact that when you get one of these stocks in for your personal rifle, you do not have to glass bed them. You can drop them in, you can shoot them. They will shoot accurately, they will shoot reliably, and they will last for a very, very long time. If you want to remove any shadow of a doubt and you want to gain the absolute razor's edge of accuracy, then you want to glass bed it. Now, with this setup between glass bedded and not glass bedded, we really did not see a perceivable accuracy increase. I really can't tell the difference between the groups that we shot with the rifle unbedded and the groups that we shot with the rifle bedded, and that's with the exact same ammunition recipe, exact same trigger, exact same action, barrel, mounts, scope, etc. So the only change was the glass bedding, and Southern Indiana Precision did an absolutely excellent job with bedding the action in here. So that is not an issue. I didn't want to do it myself and have my sloppy glass bedding job cause any variances in the test between the two. But over hundreds of rounds, we really did not see a difference between the two. Now, overall, I'm going to take a minute and talk about the McMillan stock itself, and we are really, really thankful that McMillan wanted to send this out to us and check it out. And this is an A3-5, and at this point, we've shot a couple of matches with it. We have drug it around, done a lot of training with it, done some barricade work with it, and when I initially talked to McMillan, I really wanted either an A4 or an A5, but they talked me into the A3-5, and I am really, really happy that we went this route, because the A3-5 really has just about everything I want in a rifle stock. I originally wanted the more squared off forend, but with the A3-5 having this slant up here, if you choose not to run the rail or the pigskin that we've got on the bottom here, then if you're shooting off the bags, you can just slide the bag forward or back on the forend, and that will give you a little bit of an elevation change in your setup. That's really nice. The texturing up here is very, very nice. It allows you to get a hold of it pretty well. It's not super aggressive, so it's not going to tear up your gear. It's not going to tear up your skin, but it's just enough that if your hands happen to be a little slick with sweat, you can still get a good grip instead of being the nice, slick, non-textured area. So you got little textured pads up here. Now we ordered it with the rail on the front because we knew we were pretty much going to do rail equipped bipods. Obviously you can order it with just sling studs, 1 stud or 2 studs, however you want to do it. And McMillan has these nice threaded inserts that are down here in the barrel channel, and that really holds that rail on here really tightly. We don't have to worry about screw threads pulling through. Sometimes you'll see manufacturers will just use like wood screws, heavy threaded screws to hold these directly into the fiberglass, and after just repeated pounding from the recoil on the bipod, those will loosen up and you'll have them pull out or back out, and you'll have to glue them back in. So it's nice that these are machine threads and the screws actually thread into metal. The flush cups, we went ahead and had flush cups on both sides, and they even did them on the bottom for us. I'm not sure if the bottom flush cup mounting is something that I would use for a sling very often, but it's nice to have the options there should I need to either mount something on the bottom, or should I decide to run a sling on the bottom for some specific purpose, maybe shooting off a tripod where I want to run a sling and wrap it around the front leg of the tripod. Then I have the option to switch my sling to the bottom instead of pulling off of one of the side flush cups. The inlet, we had them inlet for the Surgeon bottom metal, and it is absolutely perfect. Really, really nice job on the inlet, which is what we expect from McMillan. But the Surgeon bottom metal fit in there perfect. It did not fit in so tight that I have to wedge it back out. So it fits in well. It's not going to cause any torque on the action when we bolt things in, and pops out quickly when we need to break things down for cleaning. The actual inlet inside the action, the gray stuff you see here is the glass bedding. The inlet for the action is still the tan, and it was perfect to begin with. We had no problems clearing our trigger, had no problems clearing the factory lug. Now, we made the mistake of not telling them that we were going to run a big oversized lug. So when they cut the lug recess in here, they cut it slightly oversized for factory Remington lug. Southern Indiana Precision likes to build their actions with thick PTG lugs, and so this had to be opened up to fit the PTG lug. But that was just an oversight on my part, either not telling them that we were going to use a PTG lug, or not having Southern Indiana Precision use a thinner lug when we had the barrel dropped in there. Overall, though, coming back here, the pistol grip, you get a little bit of a palm swell on either side, and then you have this really nice, almost vertical angle. And I really like the angle that they're using because when I get up here on the stock, I have a very, very good angle for my trigger, or my trigger finger on the trigger. One thing I did talk to him about, though, is you notice that if I actually get all 3 of my fingers on here and go to engage the trigger, I do have a little bit of a downward angle on my trigger finger. I would love to see the pistol grip just a little bit longer so I can get my hand down a little bit further and get that really nice straight back pull on the trigger. But that's one of the really few dislikes I have about it. And it's not that big of a deal. I can't really feel a huge difference with a curved trigger in pulling at this upward angle than pulling straight back. With a flat trigger, I can feel a little bit of a difference, and really it's not a big issue. If I'm shooting from the prone, then I can just run my hand a little bit lower, and I'm still anchored in very well. I like the shape of the stock. Around the tang here, we have this big, nice flat area. And what that allows you to do is when you grip the stock, you can float your thumb back here on this big fat tang area. And once you fire and you go to cycle the action, this thumb is planted there, and it helps index your hand when you come up to hit that bolt handle and then start it back. And when you run the bolt handle forward, you're just coming down and again dropping that thumb right there, and you're ready to go again. Instead of wrapping your thumb all the way around and then you have to wrap it all the way back around to move your hand. It's just one of those things that it speeds things up just a hair, and once you get used to floating your thumb on the same side as your hand, it really feels natural and it feels nice. Now, those of you that do want to wrap your thumb all the way over, or if you're in an unsteady position where you really need to control the rifle, it's notched back here where you can just really lock that thumb over, get it clamped down and locked in with the rest of your hand, and you're good to go. No problems at all. The cheek piece that we have on here is McMillan's new adjustable cheek piece, and it works by clamping. You've got two rods on the bottom of the cheek, and then you have a clamp down in here and a screw that comes in through the side. And I made a slight modification on this, which I suggest everybody do. Go get some O-rings and slide some O-rings that fit tightly on these rods. And what this allows you to do is when you've removed the cheek piece like I have to actually clean the rifle, because the cheek piece is in the way if you try to run a cleaning rod through there. Once you remove the cheek piece, clean the rifle, and you go back to put it in, all you have to do is set the cheek piece in here, and it will drop down on those O-rings. Now when you tighten it down, it's exactly where it was set prior to removal. So that makes it very nice, very quick to get back in place. The cheek piece, it locks in really tight. You've got this nice big knurled knob, but the knob is low enough that when you shoot support side and you switch your cheek to that opposite side, it does not get in the way. I am fairly certain that when you order the stock from McMillan, if you order it in a left-hand version, the hardware is switched. It does come all the way through here. I think you may be able to switch it on your own if you want to shoot a right action left-sided, but I have not popped that cap out and seen how difficult it would be to switch it over. I really haven't seen the need because, again, the knob runs low enough it doesn't interfere with my face. Now, the butt pad on here is a spacer butt pad. It is not a quick adjustable butt pad. You've got two screws back here you can loosen up, and then you can flip the spacers to the side and pull them out. So it comes with a fairly substantial stack of spacers. We're down to one of the lowest spacers that it comes with just to get that perfect length of pull for me. So you have a pretty wide adjustment range. And again, since you're ordering these stocks custom made for you, if you have specific length of pull requirements, you can discuss that with McMillan. That's basically it on the system overall. We have a nice squishy Pacmar recoil pad in here. That's just the standard recoil pad. We didn't go up to one of the higher upgraded recoil pads. But for the absolutely vicious 308 recoil that this thing sees, I think that's more than sufficient. And obviously I'm being facetious when I say vicious recoil of the 308. But the stock overall, I apologize, I don't have an overall weight for you where we've got it right now, but it really doesn't matter because, again, McMillan can tailor these stocks to exactly what you want, be it your weight, your color, your length of pull. Pretty much the only things you're limited to are the general outline that you see here, where the pistol grip is at, where the action is inletted, etc. You can get these inletted for a very wide variety of actions as well. So again, the overall, the stock is absolutely excellent. I started my long-range shooting career shooting McMillan stocks, the old McMillan HTG, and those, I never actually saw one fail in the field. I'm sure somewhere at some point in time one failed in the field, but they took an absolutely amazing amount of abuse and the rifles just kept on going. Right now we have our McMillan HTG that came off a Marine Corps M40A1. It's down at C&H Precision, being built into an M40A1 again. And once we get that back, we'll show you what a war-torn, beaten-down McMillan stock looks like, and it's really amazing. We sent it back to McMillan to get a new butt pad and to get the rear sling swivel stud fixed on it, and that is the only thing we had done to this stock. It's still perfectly serviceable after many, many decades on the M40A1. So McMillan stocks, it's really hard to go wrong with them. Again, they did send this out for us to play with, see what we thought about it, but really it just gives me a chance to tell you that I've been greatly impressed with McMillan stocks. I don't have a lot of traditional stocked rifles in our inventory. Most of them have various different chassis systems on it, and that really comes down to a personal preference kind of thing. When I get on one of these stocks, it really has a completely and totally different feel from a chassis system. And it isn't really a better or worse kind of thing. It just comes down to what you like, how you like things to feel. And I enjoy shooting this stock. It doesn't mean I'm going to turn around and get rid of all my chassis systems and change everything over to McMillan stocks. But I definitely will keep this high in the rotation. That's about it for this episode of Mail Call Mondays. Again, thank you to McMillan for sending out the A3-5 in their Desert Spectre color scheme. And if you have any questions over the McMillan A3-5 or anything that we've covered, please send them to us on Facebook or Twitter, or leave it in the comments section below. If you have a question that you would like answered on Mail Call Mondays, please feel free to leave that down in the comments, and we will check back before our next Mail Call Mondays, and if we like your question, we'll include it on Mail Call Mondays. And until next time, get out and shoot.